welcome to Candid in Crimson by We Business. In this mini-series, we speak to women industry leaders who have made a distinct mark in business, technology, and lives. Here, Candid in Crimson, they talk about their personal and professional milestones, people who have inspired them along the way, their perspective on technology, business, but most of all, their message to many of us aspiring to make a difference as we navigate through our choices. Our guest on this segment today is a woman that personifies great grit and grace in business as she leads as the Chief Financial Officer for IBM India and South Asia. She carries with her over 30 years of experience across geographies, having led strategic and operational financial management for IBM's geographical presence in North America, Europe, Japan, China, Asia Pacific, Latin America, Middle East, and Dubai. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome Mrs. Tejaswini Rajwade, Chief Financial Officer, IBM India and South Asia, to Candid in Crimson. Tejaswini, thank you so much for taking the time out. It's an absolute privilege to have you here with us today.
Thank you, Akshita. I'm also very glad to be here, and also the topic and being a speaker at the International Women's Day is particularly close to my heart. I really believe that diversity and inclusion is really a necessity, and I think people are speaking up today, and that's very important. And I think we really owe it to the next generation to break the glass ceiling and give them hope, courage to fight on and really take leadership to the next level.
Thank you. Tejaswini, you've had an absolutely illustrious career with IBM, right, for a little over 2 decades. But did you always envision that you're going to be a global finance leader of such a large firm, synonymous to technology and innovation? So how has that journey been along, and what would you say have been your greatest learning so far?
So when I started my career, even when I started growing up, I did not aspire, nor did I expect to be a part of such an illustrious organization. And I'm truly honored to be a part of IBM, right? I really hold it as the highest icon in what is good tech, what is a value-driven organization. To step back, I was always bright academically, and I come from a background where education was always given importance. But it was not that we were brought up to be career women. We were brought up to be good housewives. And that's why I actually completed both my CA inter and my final after I got married. And it was really my husband who I worked with and fell in love with, who I think recognized my talent before I did. He's the one who's always pushed me to be my best, to work, to join the workforce. And in everyone's career journey, life journey, there are many moments when you really want to throw in the towel. But I've always had the support from my family and now from my kids that you got to go on, you got to do it. And I think that has been the mantra in my life, that I've been supported by the best people around me to help me on this journey. So starting from my academics, which I was good, and as I said, as I got into the workplace, I really still wanted just to have my boys, God bless them, and be a part of the workforce. But there comes a time in your life when you really, I think, are forced to choose whether you're going to go full Monty on a career path or you're going to be a guilt-free mother. I think working mothers always wear a badge of guilt on their shoulder. And there was a time in my life when I decided that I really love my work. I really enjoy what I do. And I really aspired to be the best I could be. And I think ingrained in that is a competitive spirit. If you are competing and you're running a race, it's nice to win. So I think that was another factor that drove me to succeed. And as you said, I'm here in the workplace for 30 years, and you realize at one point you cannot compete with anyone. And because you're going to run a race, you're going to come first, and then what? Uh, Eventually, I think each of us has to compete with one's own self, bars that you set for yourself, and achieve them. So they don't have to be on a ladder, if I may say so, or in a corporate run. They can be different aspirations you have. Just set yourself high aspirations, and as a friend said, reach for the stars. So at least you won't land with mud on your hands.
Wow, I think you put it so eloquently. Essentially, a really good way is to basically do today better than yesterday. So it's such a beautiful thought. I'm sure, Tejaswini, in the years that you've spent, there would be some certain leaders that you've admired along the way. What would some of those traits be that you hold dearest to you, and have you found any of those influencing your leadership style?
So Akshita, I'd like to answer your question in two parts. One is a evolutionary leadership, and then we'll come to the core of your question of leadership traits. Why I want to address the evolutionary or a broad leadership style is as I have traveled around the globe, I realize that leadership is defined by geopolitical, social, and economic circumstances of that geography. Growing up, and when we started earlier in our career, it was a very autocratic command and control type of leadership. Uh, if you will believe it, it was even more male dominant than it is now, right? So the boss knew everything. He's going to tell you, you're going to say, yes, sir. If you really disagree, you're going to politely put forward your view. He will take it. The idea will be his, of course, and then we move on from there. And that was accepted. I mean, I didn't think it was wrong. I, I just accepted it for what it was. And as as I've worked for the last years in the US, you see that they are more inclusive, they're more collaborative, they're more into asking for your views. So it depends on where we are. Another thing is that leadership has evolved over the years. We needed people who were good managers coming from the industrial era because that was what you needed, people who had extremely good management style, and that's what Peter Drucker talks about. But really today, we are coming to an expertise-driven leadership, I believe. For the next generation, they will have to understand their roles. It will be more deep. They must understand what they're doing, why they're doing, and they will have to team across the world because we are truly in every sense global. You have so much access to data, information, everything that you need to decide where do you want to excel and then know everything pretty much you can about it because that's the leadership style which we see. If you look at around the world, you are seeing even in IBM now we have our research head as the CEO. So it speaks for itself. Now, coming to the second part of what leadership traits, and I'm gonna answer this particularly in keeping with the theme of today, which is women, right? And I think for women, or for even for anyone who aspires to be a leader, I think they have to be able to get leaders have to be recognized. A position doesn't give that leadership title to you, yeah. And to be recognized as a leader, you have to have the ability to see patterns which no one else can see, to be able to see risks, opportunities which are one step ahead of your time.
Right.
And the second thing I think is the ability to make decisions. Your decision may be wrong, but there are times when people just need to know which is the North Star. And last but not the least, you have to take your teams with you. You can't go, you can't do it alone. A leader, by definition, needs to have a following. And for following, you have to have very strong communication skills. For the women, really, I think there are four questions that women who aspire to be C-suite leaders should answer. That one, how comfortable are you being uncomfortable?
Mm.
you have to be uncomfortable every day. You have to feel that my chair is shaking and my God, I'm not going to make it. Because
Yeah.
that's what gives you that adrenaline rush to take the risk. I've moved many geographies. I've moved with family. I've moved in the pandemic when no one was taking a single flight. But how comfortable are you being uncomfortable? The second thing is, how far are you willing to push the envelope? Because if you are going to do what everyone else does, you are not going to set yourself apart. And as I said, you have to be able to add value, which is strategic, operative. Otherwise, you're not a leader, and I'm not about the title. I'm about intrinsic leadership. And once you are willing to push the envelope, then how big and bold are you willing to think? Look at all the leaders we all talk about. We took an idea which was not even in anyone's mind, and they thought big and they were bold, and then they pushed with all their might to plan and deliver on that idea. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think you've holistically covered, what the need, or rather the way even leadership as a concept has really evolved and how it's really contextual. But some of the basics that you mentioned that stay as is, right? To be inclusive, take the teams along, and really even the importance of taking decisions at every step of the way. Um, I have a slightly related question to the one we just spoke of, Tejaswini. Roles across the board are evolving, including that of a CFO, and primarily because of the advent of technology in every sphere and domain. What is your perspective on this pace of change and its proliferation even into a domain like finance? Do you think it's not as much, or do you think it's high? And if so, what would you advise an aspiring CFO? How do they keep themselves upskilling, or the ones who are aspiring to get there? How do you keep up with this change?
I think that's a very relevant question, particularly given the pandemic. The pandemic has accelerated the digital transformation. And I'm going to speak from a perspective of tech, because today tech touches each one of us. All of us are addicted to our Instagram, WhatsApp, news feed, everything, right? Twitter. So the pandemic has accelerated the digital transformation for all of humanity, for enterprises to individuals. And what is we see happening is that what should have taken 5, 6 years to happen has now happened will happen in the next 2 years. And at the same time, studies, including one by PwC, suggest that we are only at a 4% adoption rate of digitalization, right? So my take on this is that everyone who is wanting to succeed at the workplace must think of digitalization as impacting our business models, our operating models, and our consumer experience. So we really, and it's not just a finance, it's going to touch each one of us, from chefs to sportsmen, right? You have to be able to see the power of tech and be willing to take part in really transformational plays if you want to have your enterprise succeed and meet the demands of today, which is speed to market, flexibility, nimbleness, continuous innovation, because that's what our competitors are doing. That's what startups are doing, right? So a giant like IBM, which is 106 years, this elephant needs to dance very much faster. And that's why its tech is extremely important when we are looking at it, right? Another thing is data and AI. As I said, there is so much information around us that each of us should start thinking of your role. And you took the example of the CFO. I cannot afford to think that I am finance anymore. I have to think that I am the enterprise, and I have to think end to end workflows, because working in silos is no longer productive or effective. And a new phrase which has come is intelligent workflows, right? We have to think code to cash, how to optimize the end-to-end experience. We have to think anything that you take, you have to think from building the offering to the sale of the offering. Everything you have to look at it holistically if you want to succeed in the new world which we find ourselves. Now, let me move on to the question you asked is what skills do you think you would need? I believe, unfortunately, our education system is lagging in keeping up with the technological advancements that we have made. So I started my career uh, picking off expense claims, one receipt to the other. Those step-by-step progression rules are no longer available because now a computer can find the outliers and we have a 99% hit rate that of non-compliance. There's nothing to check. So the roles will evolve to become very highly skilled. And that goes back to my thing that you have to build expertise, right? So a role of a CFO is now not seeing how much cost am I going to cut or is the revenue done. It is to be a partner to the MD or the general manager or to the leader to say what is our strategy, how are we going to grow. So, and that again rolls into think big. Even when you are at the bottom run, think what will you do to make a difference? What change can you bring that will really make an impact? So work for impact rather than a tick in the box job role or description.
I think that's definitely. I think you made a really pertinent point that I don't think any of us has the option anymore to adapt to digital or digitalization or anything to do with technology. It's really omnipresent in that sense and is touching everyone. So I think beautifully and succinctly put Tejaswini. You mentioned right at the beginning of our chat that D&I is a cause very close to your heart. What would your advice be to women across aspiring to make a difference in their work or field, in their field of work?
The one thing is resiliency. And I have a friend, and we were discussing one day, and she's a very dear friend, also a chartered accountant, and she is a happy housewife and a painter today. And she said, "Hi, you are so successful. Take, I didn't do anything." You know why? Because I was a bright, bonny, brittle baby. And that's where I got this concept of bonny, brittle babies. And bear with me with a moment. Women are statistically outperforming boys academically, yeah? And we all know, all of us. Ma'am, I know the answer. We know. Always we know all the answers.
Right.
And we do very well. However, our representation in the C-suite is dismal. And reflecting and really being engaged in this avenue of diversity and inclusion, as you say, it is that we are bright, but we are brittle. We break easily. Whereas we raise our voice that honestly, you don't have a freaking choice. You just got to go on working, right?
Yeah.
And as I said, once you're working, then you get addicted. Whereas our women, we say, hey, abhi shaadi nahi hui, get married, now not having children, not looking after your children. So always that constant badge of guilt. You're not looking after your children. You're not looking after your mother. Whatever it is, there are 100 reasons that society uh, economically you may not need to work. Uh, there will be always a reason to throw in the towel. And the only thing I really request each and every mentee of mine is don't give up. Just stay the course. It's okay to take a break. It's okay to walk away. It's okay to come back after 2, 3 years into the workplace. It's okay to start at the bottom round again. But just stay the course, because life and career both are marathons, right? They are not a race. It's not a sprint. You just you run from one to the other and it's done. No, it's a continuous journey. You just have to go on, and you just have to keep the energy to fight on to another day. The next thing, really, and the second thing which I would really like to close with is that build a network. Build a network of people who are positive, supportive, and share your dreams with you. Because there will be highs, there will be lows, and there's no one better to celebrate your successes and cry on someone's shoulder when you fail than someone who's got you and is going to have your back through thick and thin. And I do believe in sisterhood. So build a network of sisters who share your dreams and help each other grow along their journey and support each other, and also find, as I said, mentors who will be in your circle of sisterhood, who you can bounce off ideas, difficult decisions, taking calls which are against the tide. Because if you have to succeed and reach the C-suite, you will have to go against the tide at some point. And you need their support, their blessing, and you need someone who's just gonna have your back always. So I wish you all a very, very successful career. I'm on LinkedIn. If any of you want to reach out to me, I would be more than happy to hear you out, be there for you, and help in any way I can. I wish you all the very best.
Thank you, Tejaswini. Pretty much everything that you've spoken, it truly resonates with me. And I think the part that really is going to be etched in my heart and mind is that it really comes down to that self-drive and the motivation within, the fire within to keep and stay on course, as you put it. Thank you so much, Tejaswini. It was an absolute pleasure. And it's been a distinct privilege to have you here with us on Candid in Crimson.
Thank you, Akshita. My pleasure.
To all those who are tuned in, we really hope you enjoyed this episode and you found this segment very inspiring. I'm sure I did. I hope to see you in the next one. Thank you.